Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 142 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one solo queue, informational, informative,
motivational.
There you go, Curtis. League of Legends podcast. My name is Nathan Mott. First name Nathan, last name Mott. This is Coach Curtis. First name Coach, last name Curtis. Curtis, today we are going to be doing an expository. Is that what
Exploratory?
Expository.
Yep.
I think I'm combining two words there. I don't know the other word that I'm combining.
No idea.
It's like an exposition or something like that.
Yep.
Guys, bear with us here, okay? We're going to go everywhere this episode.
We'll try our best to
stay on track.
Kind of combine all these things together to create a coherent narrative.
Yep.
But we're covering one giant theme today.
Yep.
Being...
rank in League of Legends.
Rank.
And we're going to explore every aspect of this. Rank is like the most emotional thing in the game of League of Legends. Would you say?
Very emotional.
It's such a huge part of people's, we're going to get into it, confidence and, even self-worth, especially for the younger players. And, you get to compare and then everyone talks about, what's high elo, what's low elo. You know what
the easiest comparison to rank is in the real life? Money.
Yeah.
Money is an emotional thing. We like to think we're logical with money.
Yes.
But it's
great
a very,
comparison.
very emotional thing.
Fantastic comparison.
So we're going to be exploring everything about rank here.
So let's do some list, Curtis, here. So we want to talk about understanding the rank system.
Truly understanding it. Peeling off the layers and the bullshit, essentially. We're going to be talking elo inflation, this concept that we hear a lot about, this term thrown around a lot, perception of rank, relationship with our rank.
Why is the rank so emotional to us?
Yeah, the connotations behind a rank, how a perception of a rank changes over time. We're going to try and package this up together as best as we can.
Yeah, so bear with us, guys. So, all right, Curtis, where I want to start with, okay, let's do a thought experiment. All right. I want to, take your time to think about this, but let's try and think about the ranking system in League and applying this to the closest sort of traditional sport that we can think of. So, obviously, we need some parameters here. So, a team game, we sort of need a team game because obviously ranking system, let's say if there was a ranking system in tennis, right? You'll be able to very clearly see the distinctions between the skill level.
I was thinking chess.
Chess is the closest thing, right? But again, that has to be out the window, right?
It's a 1v1.
Because it's a you can clearly see the skill.
Right.
So, pretty much where I think we're going to get to is that the ranking system, League of Legends, is so much that goes into it. It's so complicated. Something that we've never seen if we want to call League of Legends a sport ever in terms of the way that the game is structured and the way that the game is. So I think how about, Curtis, we do basketball?
I was literally thinking of that. You know what I was thinking was pick up basketball.
Let's apply a rank system to that.
Every pickup basketball game was rated, and then someone's tracking everyone's win-loss ratio in pickup basketball.
And there was like a matchmaking system. Let's just pretend that you're able to go anywhere. Let's just say at a ranking system for pickup basketball in America specifically.
Let's say there's one in every city.
Okay, every town. Okay, we can
right,
just do
there's a court, and you rock up and you got to queue up outside the fence, and then you have
like a specific MMR,
they have a way to filter you in. It's kind of like Squid Game or something, and everyone's kind of coming out of like a thing.
Yeah.
And everyone is wearing a hood, so you can't see anyone. So everyone's kind of like anonymous. You don't actually know who anyone is.
Yeah, you don't know who the teams are going to be.
Yeah, you don't know who. Yeah, exactly. You don't know kind of what they look like, who they are as an individual. I mean, this is a bit weird here. It's
getting weird, right?
Weird.
So let's just think about this here now, Curtis. So, let's look at the nature of basketball, right? In terms of, again, seeing the skill level of the players that are playing that game, right? It's so unlike League. Remember, League's a snowballing game. Basketball is instantly back. Okay, shoot back. We get to see the skill. Like there's the physical aspect of the game, which really is able to, because you can see the physical specimens like LeBron and let's say the shooting skill of Steph Curry. Like doesn't matter how bad like the team's sort of doing. Like obviously you can have your off days,
kind of see
very clearly, right? when we go and open up any challenger stream, Curtis, on Twitch, right? Of any, and let's say Tyler one, for example, right? You know, you sit there and, you know, he's like, you know, everyone in the Twitch chat's looking at this guy that's 0-4 on the team, all right? What does everyone call that person? That person's bronze, ELO inflated, shouldn't be in here. That would never be the case in any sort of physical traditional sport.
Right,
Pick up basketball.
Right. I see where you're coming from. I'll give you a funny case study here, a little interesting thing. Dead set, this happened last night, right? Last night, me and my partner were watching LPL. My partner gets inspired to go on YouTube and watch Gumayusi VODs of Gumayusi playing Misfortune. So I'm in the other room. And then I hear just in the other room saying, "Is this guy really that good at Misfortune?" Because and I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, he's died. Like he's died twice here." And I said, "Everyone dies in League of Legends. Don't worry." How interesting that. You know, she's a beginner at the game. She's not really, you know, she's just starting her ranked journey. But how interesting is that?
Because you hyped him up, saying like he's like one of the best. Yeah. You know, watch these VODs, and then she had this perception of what that would look like. Like people's perception of like a really good player is like, you know, insane, like just 1v3 all the time.
They always carry. They don't make mistakes. They never die. What does that look like?
It's not flashy. Good play is not flashy in League of Legends, and especially like, you know, going back to the example of the Tyler 1 example of like other challenger players, someone can just be useless and look really bad in that one certain game and going 0-4 because of and when you're a 0-4 champion, it doesn't matter how good you are at the game. I even have some of the clients, right? You know, some review sessions that I do, especially, you know, even some platinum games. Like if I'm in this position right now, I can't win this game. Like we're just too far behind. We just have so limited options. We're at the mercy of the enemy team. This is like really not the case for way less in terms of traditional sports.
And this is because there are so many variables at play within a game. Like what I always say is that you're versing the champion, not the player. Because a player can only do as much as the champion allows you to do. You're constrained by the champion. Think about in basketball, you're constrained by your body, right? But it's kind of like the comparison is like your body is the champion. You can only do what the champion allows you to do. You can only do what your body allows you to do, right? So you're kind of constrained by that. And the other reason as well is I kind of view it as like, there's many ways to climb in League of Legends. Okay, so at a higher level, right? If you take a position in any traditional sport, let's say take American football, like they could have a very, very clear picture of what makes an exceptional player in this specific position. So like you have a position in American football, like a tight end or a quarterback or whatever it might be. And they probably have a sheet that says they got to be able to do these things. This is what makes a really, really, really good tight end. And these are the things that they would be looking for in a tight end, right? But in League, when you think of like a jungler, right? Now, like the game is so unsophisticated. The wider community doesn't agree upon what makes a challenger jungler. It's not common knowledge. Like when you think about it, right? You always say this. You say, well, what makes a challenger? People don't even really know. Like you have your hypothesis and you think you have a pretty good idea of what makes Bo. But that's not common knowledge, right? Like the wider community doesn't all agree upon what makes Bo. It's kind of like there's also
like general things like, oh, the mechanics are really good.
But there's all these invisible things that you talk about. It's all the invisible things, but there's no invisible.
The non-flashy things, the things that your girlfriend wasn't able to identify was happening.
That's right.
That made Gumayusi so good.
And there are those things in traditional sports as well, though, right? Like we talk about like the pressure, like there's little things we can't pick up on. Like they might be looking one direction and throwing the ball the other way, or like faking things and creating patterns and breaking patterns, things that we can't see as a spectator. But there's just more of them, I think, in League comparatively to a traditional sport.
And I think the reason for that again is because of the snowball aspect. That's not in any other sport, is it?
Well, okay, no, I disagree with that. The main reason for that is because of in traditional sport, all the information is in front of you.
Yes.
The same as in chess. That's why, so in chess, in traditional sport, there's no hiding information. Everyone sees basically the same thing.
You're on the field.
Like everyone's on the field, there's a ball, and that ball can only be in one place. But in League, there's so much perception, like fog of war, and it's a war of information. So it's not only your ability to process information, it's your ability to literally get information, gather information, right? So it's a combination of two things, isn't it? It's the processing and the execution on the information and the gathering of information.
Yeah, it's a huge different aspect of the game. And obviously the most important thing is, I think there's no other sport. Guys, help me out here. Is there any other sport that doesn't reset after every play or every goal?
What about golf?
Golf
Does,
I
think
don't know
about it,
much
snowballing, right? Because think about it. If you mess up your first hole,
Oh,
the
yeah.
score carries on.
Yeah, that's true.
Golf,
Yeah, but again, you can't use golf because that's a
It's
very
an individual.
individual, and you can clearly see the skill. It's like, okay, if you miss the ball, you know, or you don't hit it, you know, close enough in the amount of shots, then you're obviously not as good as someone else. But league's just so much harder to really identify.
It's a team game that has the snowballing factor as well on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something that does exist. I don't really know.
I guess you could sort of say NFL because there's more like clear roles.
Well, think about it.
I think
There
about
is still
soccer.
theoretically a reset, right? Like
Yeah, there's a reset.
at the end of the play,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, so it's not the same. There is still a reset.
Hmm.
Like the enemy will get the ball, and they'll lose a point or whatever it is, and then you get the ball back, right?
But in League of Legends, theoretically, you could, if you just have good resets, good tempo, you actually never give the enemy any options. Like with a good team, theoretically they can never have any options.
Again, I was thinking also of like maybe UFC, but UFC is a 1v1 sport
Yeah,
as
you
well,
can't
so you
say
can't
that.
use that either.
So League's just like this fascinating game where the ranking system by nature is going to be so confusing
Complex.
to everyone, so complex.
Incredibly complex.
What goes into it? There's so many different champions. There's 5 different roles. There's different ways to play each champion. There's different builds and items and runes, and the list goes on for the variabilities in
And
the game.
on top of this, where it gets even more complicated, someone wrote this interesting comment in my Discord saying especially in the high elo community, right? Let's say a lot of your high elo community, they emphasize specific champions. That actually shapes the meta. So hear me out here. Let's say in NA, there is maybe 3 high elo Shaco mains. Like we're talking top challenger Shaco mains, one tricks. That's going to shape people's perception of what to play. Because think about it. If there's Shaco in every game, there are certain champions that simply probably can't be played as often, which then shapes the meta in every other role. Because, okay, there's a lot of Shaco. I probably can't play as much Victor.
Yeah, play these
and then
champions
because
off.
there's not as much Victor, then these open up. So depending on how many one tricks of a specific champion there are in a specific elo bracket, especially in the high elo bracket, it changes the meta for the entire high elo community because of what is good and what's bad. The meta is the most effective tactics available depending on what's being played and what's not played.
Yeah, and I guess a champion changes the game so much. I'm just trying to think, let's say if there's like a play style in basketball, is that going to influence that much the enemy team compared to League of Legends?
What do you mean by a specific area of we're talking, a specific area has a play style of basketball, or what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, I'm trying to say so you know how we said that the entire game sort of changes, let's say if you're versing a Shaco every game in terms of people pick, like in traditional sports, I mean, I guess there's definitely adapt into their strategy or whatever.
Well, I'm assuming maybe, where you grew up.
Basketball.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's a thing. I don't know enough about basketball,
maybe we
but
just
I'm
don't know
assuming
enough.
that is a thing. No idea.
All right, so that's where I want to start, Curtis. Just that thought. Just laying out the land. It's like,
What is League of Legends?
What is League of Legends? And there is nothing in the world that can compare to the ranking system
we know
in
of.
League of Legends that we know of, in terms of the sport and even other games as well. It's just because it's a MOBA, it's a different game. Obviously, Dota is obviously the most closest one, but that's obviously not a similar rank scale. And then you have FPS games, and FPS games again. FPS games, I think you can more clearly see the skill, right?
Yeah,
in
there's
League.
more. That's why a lot of people prefer FPSs over MOBAs because of the amount of they can impact a given
Feel
round.
more control, yeah.
They feel more in control.
And it's very obvious. Like if I'm just missing my shots, I'm probably going to lose.
Very clear.
It's very clear,
Very,
isn't
very
it?
clear. And also there is an element of a reset, not full reset because there's gold, right, and money, but eventually it does reset because you can't be poor if you just eco 2 rounds. You can get your gold back and then get your guns again, right? So it's not like a full snowball, but there's an element of it.
All right, so Curtis, now should we go into the rank distribution to set that as the premise as well?
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good place to start.
All right, so I'll get it up on my screen here.
And you're going to post this on as an image as well.
All right, so let's just lay out. So these are the ranks. So Challenger is the top. This is for the North American.
We'll just use North America as the placeholder region here.
Yep. So Challenger is the top 0. This is all on League of Graphs, by the way.
Pulled from League of Graphs.
0.03% of the player base. Grandmaster is 0.072% of the player base.
Well, you got to remember it's cumulative. It's added, right? So it's a little bit complicated going top down, right? So I think it's better to go bottom up.
All right, we'll
start with iron. So iron is the bottom 7.3%.
That's a better way to say it.
And then bronze is the bottom.
Oh yeah, sorry. So what I was saying, bottom 3%, but there's 26% of the player base in bronze.
That's right. So that's why this image is a little confusing, because it's kind of like it's kind of separating what percentage of the player base is in that specific rank rather than cumulative, right? So then, for example, if you're in say you're in silver 1, you're in the bottom, what's that, 64% or something, right? Roughly.
Yep.
You're in the bottom 64%. I don't know if I'm doing my math right. Now, so let's frame that in a different way. If you're gold 4, right? What does that mean?
You're in the top 40% of the player base.
It's pretty crazy. Just framing that way. You're in the top 40% instantaneously, basically. Wait, more than... No, sorry, yeah, you're right. About roughly top 40%. So we'll have this image. I think we just put the image on there, and this will give people kind of context of roughly what the player distribution is.
And I'll quickly add up platinum here. So platinum would be the top... So we got 1% there, 1.5. Yeah, about the top 13% of the player base. Am I adding that up correctly?
Yeah, because you can just add it from the top down and minus it, right? Which would make sense. So that would be about 1% there, or not 1. Yeah, sorry, 0.1% there, 0.6, and that's like 3, and then 9. Yeah,
top 13%.
Yeah, top 13% roughly, right?
And then diamond is the top 3%.
Top 3%.
Yeah,
if you're D4, basically, you're in the top 3%.
Yeah,
which is pretty insane when you think about it.
And then master's top 1%.
Yeah. So this is just to lay the land out. Okay? Very, very simply. So where do you want to go from here, Nathan?
Okay, so let me get up my notes again. All right, so Curtis, let's talk about, I mean, we sort of understand the distribution now. Mm-hmm. Why is rank such an emotional thing for players? Why do we find that players have I would say poor relationship with their rank or ranking system?
Well, I want to start very high level here, and then we'll get more specific, right? Okay. So I think our human nature, for anyone who's really kind of trying to compete in solo queue, competition has an element of ego. Think about it. If you're a competitor, right? If you're trying to compete in anything, generally you got to have self-confidence. You got to have self-belief. There's an element of just like wanting to beat someone else, isn't there? Like you'd have to be delusional to think otherwise, right?
I want to be higher than, I want to get to the top.
I want to be
ladder.
better than that. I want to, whoever's that person is I'm versing, I want to be better than them. I want to beat that person. Like competition and ego, they're very closely linked. I don't really think you can not have an ego and be a pretty high, intense competitor.
It's like, right? You've talked about the story before, Curtis, when you were playing again with your girlfriend in normal games, and you're like, obviously, your challenger, people can see it, and they beat you. You're like, yes, I can be challenger. I beat this challenge. Like that's such a huge, awesome event for that player in that normal game. That might be like a gold player.
And that's even in normal games. They're not even playing ranked. People are just, I think again, we are humans by nature. Not everyone, but there's an element of competitiveness in all of us. It just differs person to person. But if you are embarking on the solo queue journey, that means you do definitely have a competitive aspect. Especially if you're gold plus, you're naturally probably a pretty competitive person. You're looking for a competitive outlet. So I think that you got to understand that everyone in the solo queue ladder is, in a way, we're all competing. whether you're aware of it or not, that's probably what's fueling an element of your journey, right? So I think there's that. And to compete, you got to have self-belief. You got to have an ego in some way, shape, or form. Right. So then what happens, right, is that naturally, if you were to compete and you're trying to get better at something, there's an element of, I think, naturally comparison to others, right? It's like, well, that person's better than me. That's, if I lost to that person, what a natural thought that flows on from that is that person is better than me. Okay. And this is where one's ability to detach self-worth from rank really comes into play.
I find, especially with some of my younger Soul 2 members, people going in, they have their entire identity because, like, they just go to school.
That's right.
And then, like, high school and stuff like that, and then it's just League of Legends, like, and they're on, like, the internet, and they're all part of the the community and stuff like that. Their entire self-worth, mood, identity is all tied to that rank. So,
well, that makes sense for a lot of young kids, right? Because think about it, you don't have anything else to identify yourself with. You don't,
especially when we're talking about, like, the high elo. Like, let's say again, you're platinum and above. You're starting to get pretty good at something.
Wait, hold that thought, right? I want to just expand on the thought before that, which is, when you're younger, the only thing you really identify yourself as is a student.
Yeah.
And that's even
it's like your grades, or like you do sport or something like that.
Maybe you do sport, but a lot of people might not do sport, right?
Yeah.
But that's even if you care about school. You specifically, you didn't even probably identify yourself as a student.
No.
You're just rocking up.
It's going through the motions.
The only and correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan. I mean, we've been friends for a long time. Like, I think for you especially, you would have probably only identified yourself as a gamer.
Absolutely.
And a competitor in whatever game, a competitive game. And whatever that game was, it was WoW, whatever the hell game you played, right? So for a lot of the younger audience, League is their first real
passion.
I guess passion.
Hobby.
True hobby. Something that gets them excited. Something they really, really want to try and put effort towards, especially if you don't give a shit about school. This is the thing that they're trying. They're actually genuinely trying really hard to, like, watching improvement videos, getting coaching. Like, it's a big deal for a lot of people, right? So, especially if you don't play an instrument, you don't have a girlfriend, that's a lot of people, right? Now, it's different for the older portion of the community because they might be a partner, they have a job, they have a career, they might have kids. Their
identity, self-worth comes from other aspects.
They've got more life experience. Yeah. They can separate their self-worth and their identity from that of being a League of Legends solo queue player.
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done. Now, for a lot of us, especially if we started playing League when we're younger, it can just be assumed that you are, as an individual, especially if you're taking something very seriously, that your rank is kind of you. Right? I think we've all been there probably. If you take League seriously, at some point in your journey, you've probably molded those two ideas together. And I for one, have most definitely done that.
Yep.
And it's painful because then when you lose a game, it's not, okay, I am a bad League of Legends player. It's, I am a bad person.
I'm a failure.
Yeah. And remember in Direwolves back in the day, Jono highlighted this to a lot of us, who was our performance director. We've done a great episode with Jonathan Brown. And he said he kind of sat down with a lot of us in Direwolves back in 2017, 2018. And when we said, I am bad at the game, it was like, it's not really like you as a player. It's like me as an individual. I'm a fuck up as an individual at a self-worth, individual. My perception of myself, I view myself as a fundamental fuck up for messing this hook or something, for losing this game or dying to this gank. I'm not bad at this champion, or I didn't do this specific behavior poorly. I am just terrible at the game, and therefore I am a terrible human, and I don't deserve X, Y, Z. And that's how a lot of us spoke. That was normal, common language, especially for us back in the day or in our friendship group. We
were young and really immature.
We were very immature. Yeah. We would say, I should kill myself and stuff like that. Was common language. Yeah. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, that's what we said.
Yeah.
And that is common gamer language, right? Which is, I might as well just kill myself, or how could you die to that? That's, just really gross, vulgar language that was normalized. No one called each other up because that elitist culture was just permeated through the high elo community.
And Jonathan, basically, he was able to help us separate from an individual level. It's like, I'm not the fuck. My behavior here needs to be,
That's
this
right.
is the behavior is the problem, not me as a literally living human being.
That's right.
And that helps like really, separate things. It actually just allows you to improve better. It's like, okay, it's my decision making is the problem, not me.
Because how do you fix yourself?
Yeah.
It's like if you're Nathan, I'm Curtis, and I'm a fuck up, I'm shit. What do I do about that? I'm stuck in this body. I'm stuck in this brain. I can't do anything about that. But if it's my behavior,
that can change. That can improve. It's more of a more positive way to think about it.
Right? Yeah. Well, it's just practical. It's like I can work on this behavior, but it's hard for me to change what my hands are and my brain. Right? It's a lot, especially at that period of time for us as younger people. We're a lot more. We get impressions are left onto us in regards to that. But and this is where people get into a very toxic cycle of, if I lose a game, this is why losses are so painful for a lot of people. So if you identify your rank, if your rank is if your self-confidence purely comes from your rank, right? Which a lot of younger people do, especially if their first major achievement in their life is a high rank. When they lose a game, it's like, fuck, like, that's bad.
And that's where
taking an L in life.
And that's where the blaming teammates is so thing, because it's like that person is destroying. Like that's why it's so easy to be like, this person, this troll in this game is affecting my self-worth in my life because my rank is going down because this person lost the game.
And this is one of the main reasons we see such extreme toxicity in League of Legends and gaming in general, but specifically League. Because of its brutal nature. It's the combination of that and the brutal nature and the competitive aspect of it. Because think about it, that's normal. If someone's trying to sabotage your life, you perceive this as someone sabotaging your life. It's a threat on you and your self-worth, your self-confidence.
And it's going to be a very hostile environment.
You're going to be very hostile and it's like an ego protection mechanism.
Yep.
That makes sense. It's not until you're able to separate that from your self-worth, then you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, that guy's probably not the best, but that doesn't matter because I can still work on X, Y, Z, right? And that's why the importance and the significance of the growth mindset really comes into play. So there's that.
So that's why a rank is so emotional to...
One of the reasons, yes.
And that's why, the toxicity is really, in the game, involved in the game, and the competitive nature of the game is fierce.
And then I want to expand on, before you kind of touched on this, which was rank and the perception of a rank. Now, in anything, let's talk money. If you're in the top earners of the world, like you make $10 million a year, right? There is the benefit of the raw tangible benefits of the money itself and what that can net you. But then there's also kind of like the societal view of you as an elite earner. Now,
let's use the example of millionaire, right? That's a very
loaded. It's a loaded term, a millionaire,
and sort of like that's like what's viewed as like successful, especially in Western culture,
and
right?
This is a great term to explore actually, because if we think of the term a millionaire, it's in back in the day, like in the 90s or even like early 2000s. If like you won $1 million in year 2000. $1 million meant a lot. If you're a millionaire in the 2000s or in the 90s, you're a very successful individual.
Yeah.
If you're a millionaire in 2023, you're still a very, very successful individual. Don't get me wrong, but it's shifting, isn't it? Because there's obviously inflation and everything. We'll touch on that later. But there's kind of like a connotation of a millionaire. It's a very emotional, loaded statement. Like, what is a millionaire? Like, when you visualize a millionaire, like, we have like this imagery that's kind of, I guess, pushed into our subconscious from watching all like cartoons and TV shows and whatever.
What our parents tell us.
I think of a millionaire and I think of like some guy in a robe in a mansion and like driving some fancy car. That's what immediately pops into your mind, isn't it? Right? But now, same thing in League. Now let's kind of transpose this to League. Let's just say a high elo. Let's just use the term high elo, right? What does a high elo player mean, and what's the perception of the community at large of a high elo player?
I just looked up the stats for US adults that are millionaires. This actually surprised me. It says 8.8% of people are millionaires of US adults.
So what's surprising about that for you?
Oh, I just thought it would be
low or high.
I guess of adults. It's not of the entire population, right? So I don't know how many people are adults. So if you were to put that into ranked in League of Legends, that's like platinum too.
Yeah. Think about that for a second. That's like platinum, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
High plat. So yeah, that is very interesting.
So this is where you can already see, right? It's kind of it's where it gets very complicated.
So it says there's about 62.5 million millionaires globally, and it's an 11% is increased in the last 3 years from 2020 to 2023.
Right, and I'm assuming a lot of that is got to do with inflation, right? So before we move on to the concept of inflation in general, I wanted to kind of talk about the perception of rank and what comes along with that prestige. Because in anything, right, if you're in the top X percent, let's say you're in the top 1%, you're an elite, you're kind of classified as elite, right? There's benefits to that, right? You get basically automatic respect. People look up to you. People trust you probably a little bit more on whatever that specific sphere is. And that's sexy on the outside, isn't it? People want that. People want to be viewed in that way because, again, especially when rank is kind of coinciding with self-worth and there's all these other benefits at large. Oh my God, if I'm higher, I get all this respect and I can be a streamer and then people will give me money and then I can blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. You're now automatically starting to see how rank is not just a rank. It's not just a number on a page. It's much more than that. There's all these other benefits.
Societal advantages, benefits, societal value.
Right. People listen to me. I get followers on Twitter and people listen to my opinions more. And
the skill level between Diamond 4, Platinum 1's like very marginable, but like the prestige of saying I'm a Platinum player or a Diamond player is, it's like, again, going from
Diamond to Master.
My net worth is $850,000. Doesn't sound as sexy as I'm a millionaire.
Right. It's not even that much more money.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So we just wanted to, I think we just introduced that. We'll probably come back to that later on, but I think it's a good little teaser there. I think it makes sense to now touch probably on the inflation.
Okay.
I think it's a good segue.
So this was brought up from a tweet. This is what sort of triggered the conversation here that we're going to have. Do you want to get it up on your phone?
Yeah, I've got it up here. Do you want me to read it out?
Sure.
So this was a tweet from Yusuke. And, okay. Since Riot hasn't ever addressed ranked inflation, people don't really understand how significant it's been. Relative to the player base, Season 7, mid-Diamond 4, equivalent in terms of percentages, Season 13 Masters. This inflation makes comparing ranks over differing seasons incredibly difficult, and that's the point. So, we'll put this image up. He's actually kind of got a bunch of stats here of the percentile of people in Masters across multiple seasons. So in Masters Plus, in Season 6, it was the top 0.01%. Now in Season 13, it's the top 0.67%. So that's a very, very big difference there.
Yep.
Okay. And so equivalent, Season 13 Masters equals Season 7, about mid-Diamond 4. Okay. So now flowing on from this, continue on. Sorry, 1 second.
So Season 7, Grandmaster wasn't around in Season 7, I'm pretty sure. It was just Master and then Challenger, wasn't it?
That's right. And so he's actually got, if you go scroll down to the comments, there's some great stuff about he's overlaid the percentile from Season 8 and Season 9 and stuff like that. So, if you're interested in this, it's better to look at the image. We'll lay over the images on the actual YouTube video. And now he has a great thing here, which is people talk about pro players getting stuck in Diamond in Korea, which was a meme from years ago. Remember back in the day, C9 Balls.
Most famously Balls, yeah.
Right? And pros got stuck in Diamond when Masters had 500 players. So what's that? 300 to 400 LP Masters is roughly what Balls, so C9 Balls was a pro top laner when he went to Korea and boot camped. So he was roughly this equivalent of 300 to 400 LP Masters in Korea, which you wouldn't be flamed for that now because
it's close to Grandmaster.
Close enough
and
to Grandmaster.
He wasn't there for that much time.
Wasn't there for much time. It makes sense. And so now what you've got is because there is an inflation in rank, the ranks don't mean the same as much as they used to. The prestige has shifted. And his point was that maybe you can't compare previous ranks across a large sample. That's why, again, we talk a lot about this, is that rank in Season 8 or 9 doesn't matter comparatively to what your rank is. You got to earn your rank each and every season.
And that's where we have lots of clients that come to our programs. Maybe they've taken a break or something. They say, they were Diamond 4 in, season 9 or 10, and they really struggle now to grasp, but they're not even close to that level of play currently, maybe for the reason they have taken a break, but also it doesn't mean the same.
It's not the same. So
it's not how they'll remember it from many years ago.
So Riot actually hasn't released officially the reason as to why this is happening, but I think it's pretty common sense. It's obviously got to do with the player base.
Yep.
Right. So back in season, when did Master Tier get introduced? It was something like season
5,
season 4, 5, or something like that.
So bringing it back to my good old days, it was literally Diamond 1 and then 50 challenger spots in season 3.
And so to the way this worked, for those of you who weren't around at that time, right? When you were in Diamond 1, you were getting 2 LP. So I remember back in season 3, when I was in Diamond 1 in NA, I was at 90 LP and I'd win. I'd get +1 or +2.
Oh, yeah. It was like +6 and 7 was like average.
Smaller.
Yeah.
I was literally getting +2, +3. So I remember I went up to +92 LP.
Oh, really?
And then went up by 2s and 3s. And then I remember I actually hit Challenger after the season ended in season 3 in NA for like just as the season ended. And I was like, yeah, but I instantly got demoted out because I obviously wasn't. I just got, I was like at the bottom. And then you go back, you get demoted back to D1, and then you get pushed back to 85 LP, and you're only getting +2, +3 again. So obviously that doesn't really make much sense, because then you've got this huge pool of players that are sitting at high diamond, right? And so the skill discrepancy between each of the diamonds was a lot larger.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, Diamond 1...
Even
Diamond 1 in season 3 is high Grandmaster today.
That's right. So even the LP. So if you were 90 LP D1, there was actually a big skill difference between a high Diamond 1 and a low Diamond 1.
Ginormous.
Right? Think about that for a second. But that doesn't make sense. It's not really intuitive that way, right? So they had to release Master Tier.
And then Grandmaster later on.
And Grandmaster later on to layer it all out. Because when you're getting a huge amount of player base, because when they first probably made League of Legends... They probably didn't anticipate that the play base would be so large, so you wouldn't need to have...
More ranking system.
Why would you need to have Master and Grandmaster? It wouldn't make sense.
Let's use our financial analogy again. Basically what Riot's done is they've printed a bunch of more money to put into the economy.
That's right.
Which is with the new ranks and that sort of stuff.
More LP.
And more LP.
Right?
They're printing money.
They've printed LP.
And for example, like the top of the player base was 700, 800 LP was like top 10. But nowadays,
back in the day,
1,000.
Now in a year, it's like 1900 or whatever.
Yeah, so it's just lots of variables. Spread it through.
But also the LP is determined. The cap of LP is also determined by the size of the population in a given server. So you can't actually get 1900 LP in OS, because it's capped based off the amount of players in a server, right?
Yep.
So that's why in bigger regions, like in China, you can get 2K LP, but in regions like NA or even smaller than that, and like OS and stuff like that, the LP number is shifted. It's correlated to the size of the server.
Because there's just not enough games being played.
That's right.
The LP economy is lower.
Yeah,
it's like an economy.
There's less kind of cash in the...
flowing. There's less LP flowing, give and take and stuff like that.
That's right.
There's less games.
That's right. So what does this mean, right? So the percentiles are the percentiles. So if you really want to measure over a long period of time your success as a player, you look at the percentiles. And this is why rank in Master Tier matters a lot. We say this time and time again. If you are Master Tier 0 LP, there is a very, very big... You can feel it. If you climb through Master and Grandmaster and Challenger, there's a big difference between a 0 LP and a 200 LP, a 200 LP and a 500 LP, a 500 LP and a 700 LP. It's a tangible difference in their level of play and their behavior in game. Very instantly. Within the first 60 seconds of a game, you can tell what LP a player is. Unironically, in a lane, you can tell someone instantaneously. But it's now, in order to... You can't use ranks of previous seasons because... And especially now, remember, somewhat recently, they removed the 5th division. Remember, it was 5 divisions. They've also removed promos, and now it's only 3. It was a promotion series of 3 rather than 5. So they've done many variables that have now made it more elongated. Now, people would say, isn't this annoying or blah, blah, blah? No, it's good. Because now you can very clearly see, like, as you're getting better... Like, it's harder, it's easier to climb, but that's more satisfying. Because think about it, if you're getting a lot better and you're only going from Diamond 1
90 LP to 93 LP.
Yeah, okay, let's use another. Yeah, say you're 10 LP Diamond 1, and you actually get significantly better, and now you're only 70 LP. That's not very satisfying. You're not really going anywhere. You're not progressing, right? Probably, I'm assuming, again, we're making assumptions here because there's nothing that's been released officially. They want you to feel progression. And to be honest, I think it does feel very satisfying when you're climbing up ranks in Master Tier and Grandmaster and Challenger. It feels great. And even now, it's much easier to go from Diamond 4 to Diamond 3, but that's good. You want to feel like you're going somewhere rather than being stuck at the same rank. Because I remember I was in Diamond 1 for months and months and months and months, even though I got better. Went from bottom of Diamond 1 to the top of Diamond 1.
But again, that label's still there.
Diamond 1. Still a Diamond 1 player.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's a really good point in terms of understanding the percentiles, understand that the ladder's a competition. People are getting better as the years go on. There's more top heavy nowadays. It's starting to get increased, from Yusuke's tweet saying, Master was the top 0.1%. Now it's the top 0.6. That's a 0.5% increase. That's like, I think, let's say, for example, I think it was Master and EU was like 500 people. Now it's like 12,000 people.
So
it's
many
huge,
people.
Right? It's a lot of
and
people.
there's a lot of angry tweets about this saying, oh yeah, Master doesn't mean anything. It's just like, these people don't understand inflation and understand how it's working, right? And it's just, again, look at if you're getting better at the game, you're not going to be a bottom. Let's say you finished 100 LP Master in last season, and you've gotten significantly better at the game. You're not going to just be slightly higher elo. You're going to be significantly slightly higher elo than what you were last season, right? To deem that improvement. But people are now automatically assuming, oh, look, if they get to the same rank, there's all these other people here. It makes them angry because they're just attached to that rank and they're just comparing that rank to that rank, what that meant. Now they have to put in more work or something. Like they're perceiving it as more work when, again, they just haven't got into the details there. I guess they just kind of generalize what's happening. I think they just haven't thought logically about it. Again, tying into rank being a very emotional thing. So there's that. So yes, inflation is real. It is very real. But the gameplay doesn't lie. If you're a better player, you'll be in a higher percentile, and the percentile is what matters. So if you're really interested in that, and you want to kind of track your improvement, that's probably something you probably should look into.
Right, Curtis. So we've talked a lot about, the rank itself. So obviously, we talked about at the beginning of the episode more about the dangers of it, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, the way that I think about, ranks and all that stuff, and I guess it's a bit sort of counterintuitive or whatever it is. What's the word? We're hypocrites in a way because even for our programs, it's like I mean, we have like a below gold coaching program and then going to gold. So, obviously rank is a part of it in terms of our coaching programs, but like the game's so boring, I think, in my eyes, when you think about the rank. Like, if I just sit there just staring at my rank all day, right? And, just sitting there and sitting on it, like, I want to play League of Legends. I want to get in and look at the decision making. I want to, forget about that because there's just so much danger to it. And I actually generally, like, nowadays, it's just like the boring aspect of the game to me. Yes, there's goals, like getting like 1 KLP is cool, but does it, I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything to me personally, but it's more so, this is my hobby. I guess this is sort of my job, but it's more fun to play the game and think about your decision making and sort of move your mindset away from the rank. Every time I've had success, I'm thinking about my decision making and all that and my champ mastery and my fundamentals rather than the rank.
Yeah, definitely.
And I really try and push that onto my clients more so because I have people demote and stuff like that, and then they promote. Again, they get to like Diamond 4, or they, this is huge goals that they get to, and then they're having all these like mental problems around that, imposter syndrome, all that sort of stuff, which again is really normal. I say time's going to fix it.
Nathan,
over time.
I'm gonna take the side of the client here, and we can kind of have a debate here because. Look, I think one of the main reasons people don't resonate with that idea that you're sharing, even though I agree, is because it's very hard to, tying back to our initial point, it's very hard to measure if you're getting better at the game for these people. So imagine, let's say
it's hard because there's so many variables in League.
So let's say hypothetically you're a goal 4 player, right? Then obviously there's a lot about the game you don't understand. And so if you're overwhelmed with how many things that you could get better at, you kind of just blindly trust that the rank is going to give you an indication of whether or not you're getting better at the game or not. Because for you and I, we can just look at a review and instantly be like, we did that right, we did that wrong, that's bad, that's good, that's replicable, that's not replicable. This was lucky, this was not lucky. Okay? That is a huge luxury. We're in a position of...
It's a skill we've developed over years.
Yeah, we're in a very fortunate position to have that skill. That's like God mode. We're able to see everything that works or doesn't work. That will get you LP, that won't get you LP. The average player barely, especially in gold and below gold, even in platinum, even in diamond, can't get into the review and doesn't have the skill of reviewing to be able to identify what is going to lead them to results and what isn't going to lead them to results. Therefore, again, they're defaulting back to let the rank guide me. The rank is going to be the, all-seeing eye, and it's going to be a great indicator of roughly whether I'm getting better or I'm getting worse. But we know because of the amount of variables at play, unlucky teammates, unlucky blocks, shit happens, X, Y, Z. That is not a reliable metric. So then you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do? I don't know how to know if what I'm doing is replicable, but you tell me I can't use my rank. What do I do?
What do I do? Yeah.
So what I'm saying is it's kind of like an impossible conundrum. The client is kind of forced by nature to look at a rank to dictate whether or not they're getting success in solo queue or not. So we just, and this is where we kind of just say like, yeah, I mean, I understand and it sucks. You lose games and we got to focus on the decisions. And I kind of view it as like, they're going to suffer for a long time until they finally get it. And then you do get those clients that eventually the clouds dissipate and they get it and like, oh my God, yeah, you're right all along. But that takes a long time to get to that point. So I don't really again, there is no solution for that. No. It's kind of like you got to suffer and just have a blind belief that focusing on some specific things is going to somewhat get you results. But I can really empathize with clients for that reason. You see where I'm coming from?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is going to be the thing that people attach to, and especially, the community perception and sort of stuff. And, saying I'm a good player because you're this rank, you're a bad player because of that rank.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is tricky. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think this ties into comparison, right? I think it's very natural that we compare, whether we compare with our peers, our friends, people in the Discord. I'm sure you get that, right? That person got results. Oh my God, they see the League Achievements channel.
Yeah, the League Achievements channel is dangerous.
It's like a double-edged sword. It's great to see that the process is working, but people compare. It's like, oh my God, that guy's...
Why am I not getting those results?
Why am I not getting it right? So comparison's a tricky one as well, right? Because again, people can climb in League many different ways, and we don't understand. We only see the result. We don't see the input. That's what I love about League and how it mirrors life. Like we just see the end product. Like when we watch a movie, right? We don't see what went in to make that movie.
We don't scenes.
We don't see Heath Ledger and how he prepared for the Joker. We just see the Joker. We just think that guy's amazing. He's talented, but sure, he probably has an element of talent, but that guy probably worked incredibly hard to develop that character. We just see the end result. When someone gets a result in League, we don't see the hours of failure, their shitty games, they're unlucky, their 30% losses. We just see the rank. We see the beautiful, shiny rank. We don't see all the shit that they had to go through, right? And that's just, again, the nature of why it's very difficult to compare ranks. And there's a quote here from Theodore Roosevelt. Comparison is the thief of joy. Such a powerful quote.
Love that. Absolutely.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
It really is. It really sucks it out of you, doesn't it? When you just compare and you shut someone down or you shut yourself down because you're like, oh, but that person is that. We're all different.
That person's talented.
Yeah, well, that person got that rank. And
it's very much into, John Wooden's philosophy, right? About his definition of success is, doing the best you possibly, knowing that you did everything you possibly can. And Bill Walsh's book, The Score Takes Care of Itself. That's sort of like saying, if I do my job, play well, improve, the rank follows. And that's always the most powerful mindset in League of Legends.
That was one of my favorite books, by the way. If any of you kind of want to geek out on sports or an improvement, Bill Walsh was one of my biggest...
That's why we got the San Francisco 49ers.
That's actually, I don't know if we should describe that, explain why we had that.
Yeah,
so the 49ers cap is because of Bill Walsh. So Bill Walsh, successful NFL coach for for the 49ers. He turned around the San Francisco 49ers organization.
From the worst organization to a Super Bowl.
They were the worst franchise in American sport at that time, across all sports, right? Derelict organization at that time. Highly recommend a book. It's called, The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. And when I was a coach in Direwolves, I got really inspired by that book because, that's the premise where he just went to every part of the organization, from the receptionist to the groundskeeper, every single person, and made sure everyone was just doing their job well. Everyone. And then and his philosophy was that if everyone's just doing their job well, we will win games.
Results come.
The results will come. The organization will be turned around. And then I think they won a Super Bowl within like 2 years or something, right? And he did some insane recruiting, obviously, as well. But that's kind of what our philosophy, along with John Wooden and this emphasis on the process, it's where it really came from. This is what we got inspired by, right? Because that's the only way to reliably kind of get results, because you can't just look at, okay, there's a win and we lose this one and then we win that one. If you don't know what goes into it, what's the skill set that goes
Getting into the details.
Getting into the details. And this is also why I cannot stand general questions. The more general the question, the more useless it is. Right? The medicine is the review. The medicine is the details. And again, I'm going to say this, sing this till the cows go home, or whatever the saying is. Even if you don't understand, even if you're not getting the right solution from your review, having a crack and just simply being curious will take you most of the way there.
It's most of what most players do. Most players, again, blame the champion, meta, teammates, all that stuff.
So there's a lot there about rank. Was there anything else about rank that you wanted to explore here?
Let me take a look at my notes.
Oh, yes. I got another tweet I want to talk about.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Again, talking about perception of rank. I stumbled across this tweet a while ago, and don't ask me why I remembered it. And this is not about him, the person. This is purely just a tweet that I observed. We'll put it up on the screen. I'll read it out here. Does anyone else get kind of mad when you see tweets celebrating Masters and Grandmaster promotions, or am I just ill in the head? Okay, this was the tweet. And then in the comments, he says, first time challenger tweets too. Just feels a little bit upsetting how low it is. Disturbing phenomenon. And I was scrolling through my Twitter and I saw this and I just had to pause for a second. And I was like, okay, I'm not here to judge the individual, but it's a fascinating psychological insight, isn't it? So obviously this person is coming from a very high elo background. I don't actually know this guy. His name's Wolverine. I don't really know his background. I'm assuming he's a challenger player. And he's probably a high challenger player from the sounds of things from these tweets. And then there was a reply to this from Respawn, right? We did a Jordan Sy. We had him on the podcast as well. He said, I celebrated getting gold like I just won the Super Bowl. Achievements are all relative to the individual. And then with Wolverine, his reply to that was, weirdly enough, I only feel this way for Masters Plus. I have the normal human response for anything below that. What do you make of this, Nathan?
I mean, my initial reaction, again, it's always going to be, all of us high elo players, the high elo community, we completely undervalue how much hours, how much effort we've put into this craft of League of Legends. Again, because it's a video game, it's instantly disrespected from outside society, culture, everything. If all the high elo players we all put in the same amount of effort into any other skill, we would view it way differently.
That's right.
If it was tennis, if it was chess, whatever.
An instrument,
anything like that. And it's just the fundamental nature of video games. And that's it. That's really as simple as it is. And I think it's also, again, I do have to use the word, is it insecurity?
I don't want to go that far.
I don't think it is. No.
I don't think it is. I think it's just, he's just unaware.
Unaware of how much effort has gone into.
That's right. Because I empathize with him in a way, but I've kind of caught myself, right? So this is the way I've kind of framed it, right? When you're a high challenger player on your server, it's all relative, right? So let's say I break 8 right now, whatever, and I verse another low challenger player. And then I beat that low challenger player because I'm better than that guy, right? But you got to remember that when I beat that guy, in my mind, I'm now thinking, oh, yeah, I'm so much better than this guy. And it's kind of like you're coming from a place of power, and you've already got the skills that he has, but you're unaware of how much you actually know and how good you are, until because you're at the top, right? And so what's happened is that he's probably stayed at a high challenger level for so long that he's lost the perception of how good high challenger really is
compared to like even a gold player or a silver player or a bronze player.
And so what's happened is that for him, he's unsheathed everything there is to know about the game. There's nothing hiding behind the curtains. Like a challenger player, he knows exactly what a challenger player is. There's nothing mystical about it in his mind. That's what he plays with. He plays on a daily basis, I'm assuming.
That's his norm.
His norm is the challenger player.
So let's say if the gold player views challenger as incredible, let's say that's a 10 on a scale of like incredibleness. For him, playing a normal challenger game is like a 2.
2. And what was really interesting, there was a follow-up comment on that tweet as well, where someone had said, why? People are celebrating a milestone or achievement they worked hard for. Why would you be mad? And then his response was, rationally, I'm not. It's just an emotional reaction. I don't know why. Now, that's very telling, right? Because again, it's an emotional thing. Like he's not logical about rank. If you're at this rank, or just any rank, we're not logical about things when it comes to our ego or our achievements. Like a lot of the time, it's not logical. It's very rational because it's an emotional thing. Right? And when you're comparing yourself with someone else, again, a lot of the time it's not really rational. And so I'm not here to protect him. I think it's a very delusional and disrespectful tweet, but it just goes to show that the power of that delusion and how deluded you can be when you're within the system,
certain group of people.
And he's around probably a lot of high challenger people that he talks with on a daily basis. Everyone probably in his friendship group is high challenger, so that's just the norm. And anyone below that, it's like, what the hell? You're celebrating getting master tier? Like what's wrong with you? Like that's his instinct. That's an emotional response. It's an instinctual response.
I remember. Let's go back to our financial example, right? It's like when you hear about like the millionaires or celebrities that are depressed and stuff like that, right? Because, for them, that lifestyle's incredible, but that's their norm all the time, right? So it's like, they say, how could that guy possibly be depressed or whatever? Because they've lost the perception of money.
There was a great analogy we read in the Nassim Taleb book. I forgot what the Nassim Taleb book was. It wasn't Anti-Fragile. It was maybe Black Swan. I can't remember. Anyway, there's a story he says where there was a couple in New York who lived near that billionaire row, whatever it might be in New York, near Central Park, whatever. And they were both millionaires. But they were the poorest in their neighborhood. They were millionaires, but their neighbors were like 100 millionaires. And so they felt terrible. Like they talked about their story feeling like, I feel like an outsider. I don't feel like I fit in. I feel poor. That's what they use the word poor. We feel poor.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how crazy is that?
That's just the way our brain works.
That's how our brain works.
Yeah.
We just naturally compare ourselves to our surrounding and we adapt to our environment. And that's why it's very important to reflect and get perspective, zoom out, like where you're at. We come from a very advantageous position right now. Like again, coaching thousands and thousands, and then this being our full-time job. Like it's very easy for us to be entitled and shit on people's review process when we know what it's like. If we really think hard and we empathize,
League's just such a complicated game.
It's such a fucking hard game.
So hard, yeah.
Like especially this whole, your Soul 2 Academy and the Midlane School, like our new programs. That's been a really humbling experience.
Yeah. You mentioned to me this week, even just what you've learned from the Midlane School coaching below gold players now, is that you thought it was just like really like gameplay problems, but you mentioned that like you've still got to teach the mindset, the psychology aspect of the game is so important. Like their views of the game are, very similar to even our gold platinum players that are really holding them back.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I had some very toxic perceptions of below gold players in the past. I've had to rewire my entire brain when it comes to below gold. And I actually get way more emotional and way more, I feel way more proud of my low elo, like the below gold clients getting gold.
Yeah.
Like I can see how much effort they've put in to get gold and overcome. And someone literally wrote to me and I felt bad. This is dead set. Right?
Yeah.
He said he was in the Midlane Academy and then he was a below gold player. Then he moved to the other program, and he said that one of the dynamics of the Midland Academy and this whole gold 4 cutoff is that he didn't feel like he was worthy. He felt like he was different.
Yeah.
He kind of felt like, because I'm not allowed to get reviews because I'm not gold 4, that I'm like an outsider.
Same, the New York example, same thing, yeah.
Right? And then I felt terrible. I'm like, that was not my intention at all.
No.
I didn't know, and then I needed to do this to learn, and then it made me feel, holy shit, we have probably negatively impacted a lot of people's perception of their rank. Like, oh my God, we're just so shit, we can't even get coaching. They didn't feel worthy to improve at the game, right? They felt like they were just outliers, when in reality, they're the people that need the most help. And that's why we've kind of decided to help those people and expand our programs. And I've had an absolute blast.
It's been awesome.
It's probably been one of the most
so cool,
satisfying times of my coaching career, actually. Yeah. It's been a really, really awesome experience.
It's funny, you know what we're going to get to, Curtis? Like, all right, is this too much of a fantasy world here? Is that we're going to be able to literally, I mean, this will probably change over time, but every single rank, we're going to be like able to like list out the certain skills that those sort of players need to work on, the differences we see in like literally like bronze 4 to bronze 1, silver 4 to silver 1. Like there'll be like a manual in the future.
The goal, right? I think that's our goal. The goal with our program, in my mind, is...
That's where we want to get to, right?
In 20, 30 years, I want to be able to literally take anyone at any rank and know exactly what they need to do. Yeah. That's the long term
I think
goal.
that the first thing that... I mean, that's sort of what we're doing with this podcast is, firstly, and this is what this episode really is about, is like everyone understanding the rank system, the skill, the disparity between the skill levels and the ranks. Because generally, I know that a huge percent of the player base, they think that a silver 4 player is probably not that different from a gold 4 player.
It's different.
But we see it's hugely different, right? Yep. And people just don't really realize that or think about that. You know, people still think about it the same. So I think that the first thing is really highlighting it out. I think what we'll do is we'll do a couple of episodes, whether it's on our own YouTube channels for our roles or champions, or things, just like what are the common mistakes in each rank.
We should do an episode, a BBC episode on like what we have noticed, like what are the clear discrepancies between like a gold 4 and a plat 4, a silver 4 and a gold 4, and a bronze 4 and a silver. Like I've already started to see some pretty big trends.
Yes.
Already. And it's actually not what I thought it would be.
No.
Like, I think right now, me and you, we have a pretty... We've said this off camera. We both have a pretty clear idea of what goes into specifically the gold 4 to, say, high diamond, right? I'm pretty... I'm not gonna say 100%, no way. But 90+%, I'm pretty confident I know exactly what you need to do and in what order to get from gold 4 to D1.
Yep.
Even master.
Which are the fundamentals to focus on.
Yeah, in what order, what their problem is, why, how...
Levels of champ mastery.
Yeah, it's pretty clear for us because we've done it for, thousands of reviews. But I think gold 4 below still needs a lot of work and need a lot of time.
Yeah. So I think that's what we'll get to. And I think that's where the league will evolve. And I think that's the next step to the coaching industry because I think that we're so low level.
Because think about, Nathan, okay, what coaching really is at a simple level, right? You first got to identify what goes in to achieving a specific rank, okay? So what skills? What do you need to be able to do? What do you need to be able to be competent with to get to a specific rank? Then you got to be able to execute. There's the understanding of the concepts, and then there's the execution of the concepts. Now, there's two things that make this very complicated. The ranks changing, right? Because gold 4 is not gold 4 in another season, right? So there's that, which makes things is a bit of a brain fuck.
Going back again to the beginning of you can't pick up basketball. Basketball doesn't change.
Right, basketball doesn't change,
There's no metas. There's no new patch every 2 weeks.
Right. There's that. And then there's also, there are many ways to get a rank. So we might have an idea of what skills, in this order. If you do this, you will get gold 4. But then there's another person over there
a different way.
That got to gold 4 doing a different thing.
Yeah.
And then what that fucks with people. Because we see this all the time. Hey, Nathan. Hey, Curtis. How come this guy didn't do that, and he's that rank? How come that guy's master tier and he doesn't review and blah, 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 blah? Why does that guy not be able to do it? And we have to do this.
Yeah.
right? Because there is many ways to get a rank. It might not be the most
and
efficient
the gaming
way.
background's really important as well.
Gaming background and
Because going back to traditional sports, you know, the physical aspect is so important. It's like, okay, well, he needs to lift heavier weight. You know, he's going to be stronger here, and because otherwise, or he's going to be taller here or something.
It's a lot more tangible. A lot more tangible.
So, Curtis, what we're going to do, and I'm sort of starting to see this with my champ mastery, like focusing on champions in our guides, is that you could then break down specifically for the champion, these are the skills that you need at this sort of rank in terms of like...
It would have to be champ specific.
It's
for sure.
champ specific.
Very champ specific.
And then role specific.
And that's why, again, we are both a huge fan and forever a fan and believer in role coaching and for us being advocate and playing the champs ourselves.
Yeah, it has to. It goes further than that. It's not just role coaching.
It's champ.
It's
coaching.
champion coaching.
That's why we have to be able to play many champions at a high level.
Yeah,
I get gaslit. I get fucking gaslit by other coaches in the coaching community for saying this. I remember ages ago, I think it was Vigar V2 had a tweet about this, and I responded to it saying like, you know, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said something along the lines of like, a role coach is just, how can you coach a role to that level if you don't play that role? And I got gaslit something saying like, oh yeah, but I understand the game so I can coach X, Y, Z.
Fundamentals of the game. It's not about that. It's about
that. It's about the level of how good you can be at it.
And
there's levels to it.
The studying and the journey.
And the feel.
It has to be like written down and like completely worked out. Like,
yeah, you can have a vague idea and you can give value. There's no doubt. Like sure, I can give value to a fucking 500 LP 80 carry. There's no doubt I could give some sort of value. But there's no way that I mean, you're saying that I wouldn't be a better coach if I was a 800 LP 80 carry player?
Yeah, because you know exactly everything that's gone into it.
It's delusional to think that's not the case. If I've been through that journey myself, that's why we pride ourselves on trying to be high elo coaches, challenger coaches.
I've even been, like what you would also want to do, Curtis, is that literally if you want to get really in depth, and I think that's what I want to do, is that I will show an iron Wukong, an iron 1 Wukong, and gold silver 4 Wukong.
Long term,
and literally break down every single thing for that specific champion.
I don't know if logistically it's impossible, but
it's so, because then you can't just look at one game, you have to look at multiple games.
But this is the thing that the sample size, it's not feasible.
It's so exciting,
you need like fucking AI or some shit.
There's so much. Yeah, there's so much that goes into.
Yeah, I don't know. It's infinite. There's an infinite level of complexity that we can get into here. I want to kind of tie back to that tweet, you know, the Wolverine tweet from before. What scares me the most is the outside perception of that. You know, and think about it, right? Most streamers and influencers, the most influential figures in the league industry or of any industry are usually the best. Some of the best, not the best, but usually they're pretty fucking good at what they do, right? If you've got this elitist take, which is, you know, you're shaming people for making a congratulatory tweet about getting master tier. Imagine what that is, what's that sending as a message to the wider community? Like, imagine streamers saying diamond trash, master tier trash, whatever X, Y, Z.
Let's use our financial model again, Curtis. That's basically saying, let's say a billionaire is saying, why do people celebrate getting to $15 million a year? You know what I mean? Like, it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's the equivalent. That's the equivalent.
And they wouldn't say that. Anyone who's probably you see it all the time. They congratulate people on making their first $1 million because they know that's the hardest thing to do.
Yes.
So, but it's backwards in League of Legends. Yeah. People shame people for saying that they're Diamond 4 or whatever. It's the opposite. And that's what scares me the most is that is why, again, it's a contributing factor to what permeates this whole toxic rank shaming bullshit narrative.
It would make people give up way easier, right? They see these things, they see the hype.
Like, I'm in gold.
The gate, yeah. It's like, what does that make me? Going back to the self-worth, like I must be an absolute, failure.
Fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
So this is something that we're going to see develop over the years.
And I don't think we can change. No, I don't. I am a firm believer that this will never change.
I think it will change. I think that the industry will go up, Curtis. I genuinely think. I think we're just thinking too short term. I'm talking about 15 years from now, Curtis.
And
we will pave the way, Curtis. I'm excited.
I'm hoping we pave the way.
We will pave the way. It's awesome.
Nathan,
we will have a clear understanding.
Morris, we have know what we're talking about, remember?
Yeah, but Curtis, Curtis, our new programs, Curtis, like, you know, our below gold thing again, it's very much in the early
Beta
stages,
stages,
but
essentially.
it's going to be very advanced. If we keep chipping away at this for the next 5 years, it's
no, Nathan. I'm thinking 20 years.
20 years. Yeah. This is going to be some good stuff, guys.
I agree.
You know, it's just the same as you know, any other sport. You know, these whether the
we are going to be the John Woodens of league.
That's right.
That's what we got to be. That's the way we got to frame it. Is that John Wooden chipped away for 40 years, trying to perfect what exactly goes into high quality basketball. Yeah. We're going to do the exact same thing for league, and you for jungle, and me for
the
me.
Teaching aspect of it. Is the most important.
For understanding it.
Yeah.
But then being able to teach it. They're kind of two aspects there.
So hard to do, man.
Teaching League is fucking hard.
It's so hard.
Really, really, really hard.
God, I love League of Legends.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this is why, again, Nathan, we're flame for saying League of Legends is the greatest game. And if people disagree with us, honestly, either you get it or you don't get it. You know, we're gonna keep saying it. You know, we're gonna keep saying it.
All right, so yeah, that's the end of that conversation for rank. I think we'll wrap up there, Curtis.
Yep.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I would really love to know again of any other sports that you see, like, you know, comparisons with. I think will be very interesting.
Yeah,
like if you were to put the league rank system, how would it look in other sports?
I'm sure there's like, you know, the closest thing. What I'm thinking, I'm sure there's some doubles sport somewhere.
Yeah,
doubles.
Yeah, doubles.
I
like
think
volleyball, not
volleyball.
Volleyball. That just goes to show how my brain is consumed by League of Legends. You are a league
addict, Nathan.
Oh God, help me.
Yeah, it would be a doubles or like a volleyball, but something that has a snowballing aspect. Like I was thinking doubles tennis, but it doesn't have that snowballing aspect. Something like that. I don't know what it is though. So you want to move on to?
We're doing a summer school post now.
Summer school?
Yep.
Okay.
Let me just get it up. And this is really ties into our conversation about rank. All right, so this is a summer school post by Jello Money 99. This post had 317 upvotes and 47 comments. And the title of this is The Difference Between Challenger and Grandmaster. The climb from Master to Challenger is harder than climbing from Iron to Diamond.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
The climb from Master to Challenger is harder than climbing from Iron to Diamond, but I've never really understood why. I remember seeing a post a while back questioning whether anyone could hit Challenger, and the general consensus was no, not everyone can. The top 300 has a certain talent barrier. I've managed to hit low Masters with relative ease, not having to try hard and still for fun in my games, though it's less of an accomplishment now with the LP changes. As I continue to hopefully climb, I'm just wondering more about what specifically is the gap. I can't imagine it is macro, as you can always learn to make better decisions, though it may come more naturally than for others. But I also can't imagine it being mechanical difference. While it's important, some champions with lower skill ceilings are still very viable in high elo. I understand the amount of effort and time needed to hit Challenger increases exponentially, but what is the talent barrier? What is this talent barrier?
Okay, I'm going to give my take. We might have different takes on this.
Okay.
The more I get asked questions about, and when the word talent gets thrown into the ring, the more I get confused and the more complicated it gets. I'm just going to give my very, very simple take. I believe the only... and again, I'm going to change my mind on this. This is as it currently is of the date of where 23rd or whatever we are at.
24th of March, 2023.
2023 is the level of... there's kind of two aspects of it. The first one is the speed in which you learn. It's not what you can learn. It's the speed in which you learn.
Processing information.
Potentially, but I'm talking more big picture.
I guess that ties into speed of learning.
I'm just like speed of learning, like how, it kind of ties into it, but I mean like how quick do they pick up shit?
Yep.
As well as their ability to stay motivated and focused for a long period of time. That is the talent. Okay, I believe as it currently stands. Yep. I think that's that is the dividing factor. Like when I think of like again, a lot of high challenger players. One of the biggest differences is how obsessed they are. The level of obsession is the talent. Not everyone can be obsessed.
They think about the game all the time.
I'm going to talk about this, and again, this is just from what we've seen. We got to use the example of Schönfire when Schönfire was in his prime. like Churnfire was a player we worked with in Direwolves. When he was very, very good at the game, he would live and breathe the game. Wake up talking about the game, thinking about the game. All day talking about the game, thinking about the game. Solo queuing after scrims, talking about the game. I used to get... he once called me. I went home. It was like midnight. He called me and said, oh, yeah, I was thinking about that Olaf clear, blah, 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 blah. Think about that for a second. And then on the way home, probably talking about League. Like, that is the talent. The talent is the obsession, the amount of... how obsessed can you be?
Churnfire he paid for his own money as a 18, 19-year-old.
I think he was even younger, wasn't he?
Went to Korea for a year, literally had a mattress
on
the floor, and then the computer next to it in a very small room in Korea for, I think it was 6 months. This was in 2017 it was.
Was that 2016? That was 2016.
Oh, sorry, 2016 because we boot camped and met him, remember, after that.
And that was when he got
ranked three
in Korean solo.
And he trialed for the
SKT.
T1 team with Fake.
He trialed for SKT. That he was to get ranked top 3, ranked 3 in Korea, you have to be insanely good.
That's psychopathic. Someone cannot sit in a room. I think he had a terrible diet.
Didn't even speak Korean
for 6 months in a tiny little room. Isolation. No interaction. Couldn't even speak Korean. That is psychopathic.
At that age, it's psychopathic.
He's psychopathic.
That is why he was not talented.
No.
Right? He got ranked 3 in Korea.
Yeah.
He was someone we laughed at in OS because he was so bad. He was a meme in OS.
In season 3.
In season 3 because he was gold when we were like challenger. Yeah. He was literally gold.
And he was like, your low diamond ones, but he played a certain style. He played like Wriggle's Lantern, like Shyvana and stuff like that.
He was but he wasn't a good player then. But
yeah.
He showed his difference. He's like the real life Naruto.
Yeah.
Right? That's why he loved Naruto as well. Like Naruto, that story of Naruto, if anyone's seen Naruto kind of I believe that whole Naruto narrative of like being someone that is like, someone who's so driven and just hard work for such a long time and is forgotten, but they can be the best. Like that's what I believe. I believe, I think Max Verstappen, right? I don't understand that sport, but I believe his talent is how driven and how obsessed he was from such a young age.
That's right.
Think about it. His dad was an F1 driver. He was a go-karting champion. But because he put in all this time and effort, he was like kind of, I'm not going to say groomed by his dad. But But he was like influenced and he was just obsessed.
Yeah.
So I just think that like these players that are high challenger, they're just obsessed. They live and breathe the game. They think about and talk about and think about how to get better at the game. And then they love it. And it's not a job to them. That's what they want to do with their life.
Yeah.
That's it. That's talent.
The top comment, which actually has more upvotes than the actual post itself, he literally went into the details saying they know CD's cooldowns more precisely, they space better, they set waves better, they can see the future. And I think that's a really boring way to explain, but that is the truth. It's all the tiny details, the small consistency.
Details. That's right.
It's the invisible things we talk about. It's
like we said in the last episode where I can know my mental stack is so freed up that I can think about what the enemy's going to do.
That's right.
That guy doesn't stand a chance if I already know what he's going to do.
You know what he's going to do before he knows what he's going to do.
Yeah, I know what he's going to do before he's going to do. That's right. Yeah. I'm able to think about 5 steps in advance.
Yeah.
I know what he's feeling. I know what he's thinking. I had this conversation with Maxwell in the MLA, who's a Grandmaster player. And we agreed upon that I can read a player's emotional state by their movements.
Yeah.
I know what they're thinking. I know what they're feeling. I know what they're going to do. That is challenger gameplay. I know what they're going to do before they do it. I have complete mastery over how I win, what I need to do, what I don't need to do, what the win condition is. It's just all the small details. Master, like I said, I'm going to say this same thing. Master the challenger is the solving of 1,000 puzzles.
Tiny little puzzles.
Yep.
Very small
Imagine
puzzles.
you have 1,000 complex puzzles. Solve 1,000 of them.
Yep.
Review 1,000 team fights. Then stay focused enough and not get tilted. And then you might get challenger.
Yep.
That's it.
And again, going back to our rank distribution, challenger is the top, you're a billionaire status.
0.03.
It's like,
that's billionaire status, right?
Something like that.
I don't know what
I didn't look up the billion. It must be, I think it's way lower than that. I think it's like 0.
Right.
But,
I'm actually intrigued. I'm going to
you look at it. What percent of the world is billionaires?
What percent of the world is a billionaire?
I'm pretty sure it's only a couple of thousand billionaires.
What percent of the world?
yeah, I really liked the way that the top comment, and I like that was upvoted. So, and then someone said this is a very interesting comment section compared to the top, which talks about differences in brain anatomy. Yeah. So yeah, it's all the tiny little details.
Yeah, it's just a small detail. So I got there's a stat here. It said that there are 3,311 billionaires worldwide. I don't know what that is as a percentage, though. How many people are in the world?
God, we're gonna get roasted in the comments for this one, Curtis. And isn't it 4
Holy
billion?
moly, there's 114 billionaires in Beijing alone.
Wow.
China has said here, China has like a third of the billionaires, I think.
Oh wow! I think I said 4 billion. There's 8 billion. There's 7.8 billion people in the world. Basically 8 billion.
So let's do some division here, Nathan. What percentage?
Oh Jesus!
8 billion. Was it 3,300? 3,300 divided by 8 billion?
Like how many zeros is that, dude?
All right, let's just give up here. Let's just let the mathematicians in the comments help us. It's not important.
Is that 80 million? Jeez, dude, billion is so many zeros, man.
It is. Yeah, you can't comprehend $1 billion.
I think I just did the percentage and it came up with like I can't even read that. It's like
oh yeah,
to the negative something.
Yeah, anyway, let's just let a smarter person than us try to do this. We can't even do basic addition.
Anyways, that's not even Challenger, dude. That's like you're talking about like rank 1 basically on a server.
Yeah.
I think that's like the equivalent.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, rank 1 is it's on a major server, it is very, 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 very hard.
Yeah.
To be like a genuine rank 1 player. Like look at Bo.
Yeah.
Bo is a freak.
Yeah.
Like he is insane. So I think there's an element of like you said, ability to process information. Right? There is something there. Like, I don't know. But I think majority of talent is just being obsessed, right?
Yeah.
And just small details.
Yeah,
You
small
don't need
details
to be...
and also the invisible things that we talk about, they relieve pressure in ways.
Think about it. You will never find the invisible things and be able to replicate the invisible things if you're not obsessed. If you've got a blase mentality, you're not obsessed, you don't give a fuck. You're not going to get Challenger. You can't just like...
He said that he for-funds games and stuff like so it doesn't sound like... I don't know what that means.
He probably is a talented gamer. If you're for-funning to Master Tier, you are a talented
good game
gamer.
Background, yeah.
You're a good gamer. A very good gamer, in fact. So think about that. That's, again, tying into the lack of awareness. You're for-funning to Master Tier. You're a good, very, very, very good gamer.
Yeah.
Right? And he's not aware. He wouldn't even agree with that statement. That's the crazy thing. You think, you're delusional. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You are a great gamer.
Yeah.
Whether you want to believe it or not.
All right, Curtis. We'll jump into the Curtis's clips.
Curtis's Clips Corner. Here we go. And welcome, everyone, to Curtis's Clip Corner. Okay, so this was a VOD that I did this morning. This is I believe, Grandmaster EU. And... I've got so basically what I've done here is I've kind of paused it on just after he died. Okay, just to give you the lay of the land of the state of the game, the game state. Okay, so we're 14 minutes in. He's playing Kassadin. After his death, he's 3-3-3. He has a 4-0 Kaiser on his team. So his Kaiser is actually pretty beefy. The enemy Civ is 0-3, so his bot lane's doing a great job here. He has a 1-3 Hecarim. He has a 2-4 Gragas after the death. And then on the enemy team, alongside the 0-3 Sivir, the Annie is 0-2, the Nars 2-2. The only Fed member on the enemy team is a 10-1 Lee Sin.
Whoa.
Okay. But I believe he just got a double kill, or I think either a 1 kill or 2 kills here. So he might have been, before this play, maybe 8-1 or 9-1. Okay. So when you look at this game state, right? If we just envision for a second, if I go back here, would you say that the game state is like desperate?
So he's playing a Kassadin.
He's playing Kassadin.
3-2-3 is basically 100 CS by 13 minutes. And let's look at the towers. So the objectives and towers are really important.
Yep, look at the towers.
Can I look at the can you go back to the dragons and stuff? Because that's really important in terms of desperation.
Okay.
Where was our little screen?
Yep.
Oh, there's no dragons.
No dragons.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just relax. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Yeah, I mean, Lee Sin will give you a shutdown 100%.
Yep. So why are the dragons important, Nathan?
Well, the dragons put pressure because dragon souls are really, really important objective.
Right. So we know if there's no dragons taken by 14 minutes, and we know that there's only one fed member on the enemy team, you're playing a scaling champion. You've got a pretty good scaling composition as well. Game's not that desperate, is it?
This is such an important concept. I have many people in reviews in the mid game. They have this narrative, or someone's fed, or someone's about to get fed. That like they think they have to like force a play because they're going to lose the game because they're getting outscaled, or they're not playing good League of Legends because they're in this the desperation mindset in League of Legends.
That's right.
Is so dangerous, and it loses you so many games. And yeah, it's just not centered in reality when we zoom out. So obviously your client here said that he was desperate. Which is
so to give a bit of context,
yeah.
right? So this is the clip, right? So the clip he's playing Kassadin. So I want to go back here. So he even just gets a pick here on the enemy AD carry. So this is 30 seconds before the play. And to get a big, I'm going to show the play. So I'm just going to play it out from here. So essentially he's playing Kassadin, gets a nice little pick. He gets his third kill. He's
kills the AD carry.
Kills the AD carry. And then he sees the enemy Lee Sin posturing for a dive on top side onto his Gragas.
Yep.
So he makes the choice here to actually try and defend top. Now, to give a bit of context, the enemy Annie's on the opposite side of the map, got a huge stacked wave on bot side. And so he decides here to spend his time kind of trying to defend the Gragas on top and maybe like defend the dive or something. The Gragas ends up, ultimately dying. And now he's just trying to maybe defend the wave and catch the wave under the tower. And in a second, you'll see him and the Nautilus try to make a 2v3 play. He compensates in a way, kind of goes in, dies to the Lee Sin, right? And then I asked him, I said, what's going on here? What was your mindset here? He's like, well, I felt like the game was over. I felt like, the game was, I felt like the game was over. I felt like we couldn't win the game. So he had lost. He was in that desperate mindset you're talking about here. And I said, let's just back up a second. Look at the scoreboard, dude. You had a 4-0 Kai'Sa. You're a scaling Kassadin. They've got no dragons. You still got mid tower up. Rift is not even up yet. You can stall this game for a very, very long time. You win side versus Annie anyway.
Yep.
Game's in a great spot in my
This is a very comfortable situation.
And it's a Lee Sin. He's going to, highly, highly, highly likely he's going to give you shutdown.
Yep.
And I said, well, if I was in this situation, I wouldn't even have gone top here. I would have actually said, screw it. I don't
get
give
some gold, collect farm.
Collect this 3-stack wave on bot side, farm up a storm, get to my 2 items. I'm rock and rolling. I'm chilling.
Even if they break top tower, who cares, dude?
Yeah. It's a tier 1 out. It doesn't even matter. And, what I've noticed is a theme in the Midland Academy where people are getting very desperate. They're not being rational about the game state. They're not looking in the lull states to genuinely ask the question and zoom out and calibrate and be like, okay, what do I need to do to this game to win? What's happening is that they have an emotional response to some negative events in the game, and they don't consolidate those emotional thoughts. They just kind of run away with them. It's like, oh, yep, I'm behind. I'm weak. This guy died. They got bot tower. Oh, game's hard. I probably can't win this game. But he hasn't called bullshit on his thought process. You got to check. That's what the lull states are for. The lull state is for you to calibrate and assess what's actually happening in the game. And so it's very easy. Now, this is why it's very complicated here, because in the review, a lot of people, if we go to this death here on top side, you can look at this from many, many ways, right? And this is why I have the 4 stages, okay? Let's call it this is my 4-stage model. Stage 1, micro execution. Stage 2, macro, kind of macro decisions. Stage 3, reference points, understanding your role in the composition, win conditions. Stage 4, out of game mental mindset. A lot of people will jump to the conclusions in this situation and automatically deem it to be maybe even a micro problem. Oh, I didn't know Rel had ult. Or, or even a macro problem. Oh, yeah, I should have just went bot instead of go top. In reality, this is a stage 3. This is you don't understand your role in the composition. You don't understand your reference. Your reference points
big picture.
It's big picture. Your big picture view of the game is actually wrong. If people would set the learning objective here, a threat assessment. No, this is not a threat. This is not the problem. If I told him back here, say I'll do some live coaching here, I said, game's free. All you got to do is farm bot, stall the game out. and tell him to relax, potentially. Even though I would never do life coaching. Life coaching's a joke. He wouldn't, even if he went top, he wouldn't art onto the rail. That's my belief. My belief as a coach is that he wouldn't have art onto that rail and he wouldn't have died if he had that conservative scaling mindset.
When you understand big picture what your role is in the game, that will completely alter decision making the fights you choose to take.
That's
and the stuff.
That's right. So, guys, before you jump into conclusions in your reviews and deeming it as like, oh, yep, threat assessment, oh, yep, shouldn't have done X, Y, Z, zoom out. Did you even have an idea of what your role was in the composition, what the win condition was?
Was that, like, question yourself. If you thought that you were in a desperate position, question.
Yes, that's what I say.
Was I actually in a desperate situation?
Yes.
And do a thought experiment.
Because, yes, there are times where you are in a desperate game state. The game's doomed. You got to probably take a low percentage play to try and win the game. But if you're having that thought process, you better double check and triple check if that's really the case. Cool?
Love it.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Mailbag.
All right, so yeah, we'll do mailbag. Well, next week, I'm going to bring a clip because I love the concept of the 4-stage model, the stage, like thinking bigger picture, what you actually need to make this play for the game. I have a great example from one of my reviews, and I'll just mental note that for next week.
Okay.
I'll bring a clip to Curtis's Clip Corner.
Right.
And by the way, thanks to Mick, shout out
Mick, awesome little intro.
For our intro. I mentioned it in the comments of last episode, but I forgot to say it in the episode, so... Curtis is happy he's got his little jingle now.
I've got my own little corner now. You've got your
my big mailbag.
Your big mailbag. Your little
now you're
mailbag.
In the corner,
I've got my corner now.
All right, away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's mailbag. Jingle song. All righty then. First question here comes from Knight. The title of this email is Choosing Mistakes to Focus On. Dear Nathan and Curtis, when reviewing your games, how do you choose which mistakes to focus on? And how long do you focus on those points for before choosing new ones? When I review my games, I try to write down every mistake I see and ideally write down what I should be doing to prevent myself from making that mistake in the future. I try to pick out a handful of the most important ones and write those down separately. I then read this smaller, though not insignificant, list before playing my next block. I feel like the sheer quantity of mistakes or things I want to keep in mind prevents me from ever really focusing on a given problem, especially when each block presents new and or old mistakes.
Yeah, look, I mean, coaching does solve a lot of these problems, but something you need to understand is that the earlier the game is, the more significant the mistake is.
Yep.
So, from a mid perspective, if you are dying to a level 3 gank, or you are missing an obvious reset window, or your wave is in a bad position, these are end of review type mistakes and things that you need to only focus on until the first 8 minutes of the mistakes that you need to just don't even look at anything past that point. If you're making any of those mistakes, end the review, move on.
And that's why our end of review process, we've found it just been so successful because that, yes, exactly as you said, that the early mistakes is where it has the biggest impact of the game. Going back to League of Legends, a snowball game.
Yep.
In general, it's easier to close out games when you're ahead.
That's right.
You can, continue to make mistakes, or you can not play your champion optimally, and because you have so many items, the enemy seems so weak, because your laning phase, the first 8 minutes, you're going to win the game anyway.
I have a rule of thumb that I put in my MLS, which is you should only review the mid game if you have a very good, clean, consistent early game.
Yeah.
That's it. Really that simple. So if you were, let's say hypothetically, that person has a great flawless early game, in that case, I would basically pick out 2 confusing moments, 2 big mistakes, whether it be a team fight, a lost 2v2, something that was bad, and then review it and then move on. Just on the topic of notes, right? Okay, so I've got my take on notes. You can share yours. I'd be interested to hear your take. I don't take notes anymore. I don't really see the value. For me personally, I think note-taking is a very personal thing. There are people that get success in my program with note-taking. My advice, though, if you are going to take notes, is that the way it should be, it's not a documentation of what happens. I don't like notes that are like, this happened, I made this mistake, I did this, I did this. It should just be essentially a reminder of like imagine it as if it's like a bookmark and you want to come back to where you left off. So it could be like, I like things that you can execute upon. So I need to be more aware of jungle start, or I need to use my lull states to process win condition. Like, so what you want to do is you want to distill the takeaway from the mistakes and then note that. So rather than kind of transcribing or like documenting what's happening throughout the game, no, just say, okay, based off those mistakes in your review, you've like watched it, like, okay, maybe pick one or two things that you can take away from it and execute upon in the next block.
Yep.
That's it.
I do like that he nails down the lists and he tries to focus, like tries to sort of do what you're mentioning, but not quite there.
But let's say as well, like, it seems to me he's making a bunch of mistakes in say a one block, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to focus on that for one block and then move on.
Yeah.
Like, you got to stay with learning objectives long term.
Yeah. Remember that book? Remember Jono? Remember we got a summary of it? It's like Practice Perfect or whatever. And the philosophy around that was you practice something till you can't get it wrong. So, for example, the most simple one, everyone that joins Soul 2 program is that make sure you know where the enemy jungler starts. See who leashes. That's a very obvious, tangible thing that you can measure each game. Did I do it or not? Really sort of simple. It's going to be the same every game because enemy jungler has to start on a buff. And practice that until you can't get it wrong. There's another one I did a review today about Xin Zhao. Auto attack, then Q, because Q's an auto attack reset. He kept on doing, and we looked at anything else. No, that's the only thing we're going to focus on because he's actually developed a really bad habit in terms of just always queuing first and not maximizing his damage. So practice that first until you feel like you can't get it wrong. And we always talk about, you have to revisit old learning objectives, and it's just a constant cycle because there's so much variables at League of Legends. But it's basically, the idea is that we're building muscle memory. We're identifying, again, the couple of huge major mistakes. I remember how I said there's so much information in a death. There's so much you can, just from one death, your first death. So for a jungler as well, let's say, for example, the key things is I failed a gank. My first fail gank, why did I fail that gank? And there's so much you can learn because that one piece of information of why I failed that gank actually applies to ganking fundamentals in general. Was the wave too big? Did we get 2v3? Did I not think about, my Blitzcrank just used his hook and I went in too early and not waiting for the cooldown. So, yeah, focus on the early mistakes. That's where you want to choose the mistakes to focus on. And, the note taking. Note taking, yeah, I agree with your perception. I do note taking for my review sessions, but again, I try and make it more of like a big picture thing. It's like, for example, I'll like note down. It's like for that Xin Zhao review. I didn't note down every mistake he made in that review. It was just
Needs to work on Xin Zhao Q.
Xin Zhao Qs. When people first come in the program, make sure you check track them level 1. And a lot of it's champ mastery stuff. It's like you use your ult this way, or review your first ult as Evelyn because your first ult's really important. Stuff like that.
Yeah, so a bit there for you to think about. I would also recommend, by the way, if you haven't, I've got a video called How to Improve Game Sense and Intuition on my YouTube channel. It goes into the review process and also how learning works with reviewing and improving intuition. I think it's a great video for anyone to watch, no matter what role you play, because it gets into like how learning fundamentals, how reviewing increases your level of play. So I think I recommend watching that video.
Love it. And going as well in terms of getting a coach, like a coach is, they've worked with so many clients, they're going to know what you immediately probably going to have to focus on, which is going to help that as well, instead of trying to figure out yourself. And that's the benefits of a coach.
That's right.
All right, moving on here. This comes from Ruslan. I think I pronounced the name. The title of this email is Video Games and Growth Mindset. Greetings, Nathan and Curtis, and also other members of the British Broadcasting Company podcast. I've recently come across one of your older episodes, episode 12, where you theorized somewhat about the positive effects of gaming and League of Legends and how it cultivates a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed one. I think this might actually be true for any type of craft, be it handcraft or warcraft, but it's the positive effects that differ. I think what separates the generation of non-gamers from gamers is that people who haven't been exposed to games at a young age can find them too overwhelming, and yet children might not even realize it's confusing for them since they don't yet have any expectations. This is obviously beneficial since they persevere and realize they can get better if they spend time on something. I'd say I can speak for my age group, 22. Every person with a fixed mindset that I know is not curious. They fear being seen as a fool, either to themselves or others. I've always thought that you have to be a fool to become a master. Everyone starts at zero. It's the journey that's different, and becoming a master kind of implies there is nothing more to learn, which is never true. I can say for certain that gaming has allowed me to find one of my deepest passions in life, which is making music. From a young age, I've been told it's not for me and it's for talented people only, and yet I've been curious enough to try it for myself. I'm not sure I'd have done it without understanding the growth mindset that I got from games. It's been a huge positive influence in my life for 8 years now. Through music, I developed an appreciation for art, effort, and mastery, and I feel more deeply than I ever used to. Although I'm not sure if that's maybe because I'm me getting older, I wonder if you've had similar experiences playing League, albeit, I don't never know how to pronounce that word. Albeit, yeah, that's the one, Curtis. Perhaps from a different realm of positive effects. It would be very interesting to hear your perspective. On a side note, I main top lanes in Zhao and Gold 3 steadily climbing, doing 3 blocks every other day, and I find the playstyle to be incredibly satisfying to the point when I play other champions, I realize I wish I was having fun playing my Xin Zhao. Thanks for the podcast and guides. They're always super insightful. And can we get a hearty hello BBCs from Curtis one day? I know he can do it.
I will start the next episode with a hello BBCers.
All right, Curtis is going to do a hearty BBCers.
One. I mean, what an amazing...
So video games and growth mindset, Curtis.
Great email.
And this is why we love League of Legends. And because it's such an accessible thing, because everyone, especially in our culture, our society, most people have access to a computer. It's free to play. This is the first thing that, I guess we played other games, gaming in general. We built our confidence. We learned how to learn from games, which built our confidence to learn every other aspect of life. Gym, finances, the psychological aspect of things. It's just such a fantastic tool. And you can, I agree. You can apply it to anything. If you get good at anything, if you're hand making wooden things, music, whatever. If you learn how to learn in that, it applies to every other field. Perseverance is the word you use. I love the word perseverance.
Has it influenced the way you view other? Like, say when you watch, like, for example, you watch that documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, or you watch an athlete perform, or has it kind of shifted your perception of that activity?
Absolutely. Specifically growing up, because my mum used to watch a lot of like those chef, shows and stuff like that. And I thought cooking was cooking, you know what I mean? But now, like, when you hear about, I guess I never watched a chef that articulated it well enough, the craft. Like when you have people like, is it Marco Pure White and Gordon Ramsay and stuff, like the way they articulate the craft and Jiro Dream Sushi, I really understand. Okay, what they're doing is exactly what I'm doing, essentially, just in a different field, and that makes me respect it a lot more.
It's all the same thing, right?
It's all the same stuff.
I think I disrespected sport growing up massively.
Yeah,
and music.
Yeah,
it was, for me, it was just talent. Yeah. That's the message that I was raised with.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, there was no such thing as being a great musician or being an artist.
Because we were saying that, because we were never it was like, you could never do that. You're just not that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was literally the message that was pushed. There was, in my family, there was never a like straight up. And this is not to say pity me or anything. It's just old school parents, right? It was, oh yeah, your talent, you're good at math. You're smart at maths.
Yeah.
You're good at maths. You're good at that, or you're bad at that. Yeah, don't worry about that. Like literally, my family said, "Yeah, you're just not really good at English. Don't worry about that. You're good at
no effort."
It's not about. There was no process. I never got taught how to study. There was no growth. I had the most fixed mindset you could possibly have, and the way that permeated everything. When I watched sport, I was like, I didn't really see it as impressive, even though it sounds ridiculous. Yeah. I didn't see.
Because you thought they were just given those talents.
Yeah, I thought they were just given that. I was like, oh yeah, that guy was just really athletically gifted and he didn't really have to do that much to get there.
So it's not that impressive.
It wasn't impressive to me. No sport was actually fun to watch. That's why I didn't really watch sport growing up, because it didn't make sense to me that, like, oh yeah, this guy's trained every day of his life and makes all these sacrifices to get where he is and pursue excellence. That wasn't, what the fuck? That wasn't even the realm of possibility.
Or conversation or words that you heard.
I never even heard those words put together. And there was no such thing as a mindset. Like my parents, like this
mindset doesn't exist.
Mindset doesn't exist. Like my dad says, like depression doesn't exist and stuff like that. Right. So like I came from that background.
Yeah.
So, it's more of a, now when I look at things, it's like, I look at it with a sense of just awe. Like when I watch, Max Verstappen in the F1 or these, elite athletes in any sport, it's like, wow. Like you watch a Roger Federer or any of these elite athletes in any given sport, you're like, that guy, his mindset must be rock solid. Or like you see, they just lose a tough set in tennis. Tennis is that's why I love tennis, because you can see how much they try for a set, for a point, and then they lose a long rally. And I always imagine being in their shoes right now. And then when they bounce back and they win that, like I understand that there's so much. That's why that guy's an elite athlete. No, not many people in the world that can do that. They've got everyone in the world watching. Everything's on the line here. You're competing at the highest level, and then you lose a point on a rally of like that goes on for 2 minutes or whatever it is.
And you have to move on to next.
And you have
What's
to
next?
go next.
What's next?
Like let's move on. Like Novak Djokovic and all these amazing athletes. I have an admiration, not just of not their talent. It's just their mental fortitude, their mental strength, the effort you can tell they put to that level of mastery and excellence. And again, that's why we would have watched that Jiri Dreams of Sushi when we were 15 and be like, what the hell?
It's like he's some Japanese, Japanese are just super talented making sushi and stuff. But then you realize this guy's spent 70 years on one specific type of food. What the fuck?
Yeah, and we think in time spans of months.
Yeah,
he's in decades.
Yeah, and that's what you do when you're young, because a month for you is decades for you technically.
That's right. And so for me, League has given me something that I'm really grateful for what I've been able to learn through League, and I don't think I would be remotely the same person without League. And I think I would have lived a much more shallow life if it wasn't for League.
Or gaming in general.
Yeah.
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 But League was really where we really understood the beauty of gaming more so.
The beauty of just excellent. The pursuit of mastery, essentially. Yeah. Great little email there, though.
All right. And we'll do one more here. This one's from Max Verstappen.
He's written in. He listens to the podcast.
Hello, Kings. I've recently started listening to the podcast and I've been loving it. You guys bring up a lot of stuff which I don't really hear anyone else talking about, like champ identity and your role in the game. I'm in low gold. What have you done there, Curtis? Put the fluids in your mouth, Curtis.
It's just broken.
I'm in low gold. This is my 4th season. I've decided to start purposefully trying to climb after finding this podcast rather than just spam games. I play top lane, which I know is neither of your specialities, but I'm trying to get my champ pool in order and wanted to know your thoughts on playing champs like Renekton and Aatrox. More generally, by that I mean playing champs which are meta in pro play, so they get nerfed really hard and have very low solo queue win rate. For example, Ryze. Versus champs that stomp solo queue. For example, Singed. For example, I've been playing Lee Sin top and Renekton top a lot this season, and I find it very fun, but I have an abysmal 40% win rate over 30 games on Lee Sin and 45% over 50 games on Renekton. But on the other hand, I've also been playing Singed and I have an 80% win rate over 30 games. Should I just drop Renekton and Lee Sin from the pool and climb with Singed? And try to stick it out and learn the champs? Keep up the great work, guys. Look forward to hearing your thoughts.
I think this just ties into a bigger picture. Like, what do you want to get out of your experience playing League? Some people want to sit there and struggle with a champion for, months because that's what they find fun. They love that champion. And I don't necessarily think Renekton is a champion that is bad in solo queue. It just requires you to really know your matchups and get the ball rolling. Like, you look at this, there are a lot of high elo Renekton mains and one tricks, right? So I think this is ultimately a very personal thing. I think you're going to have to do some reflection and see what you want to get out of your League experience. I know there's people in my programs that actively play harder champions because they just want to they want to play that specific champion. I've got literal Azir mains in gold, and my heart, aches every time I look at Azir in gold, and I'm like, dude, you're playing the game on ultra hard mode, but they have fun doing it.
Yeah, make it. I have Nidalee players in my Salty program that, they're fully aware of how hard their journey is, and I've made it where you might get demotivated, but you're going to make sure you're having fun, because the progress is going to be so difficult.
That's right.
Singed has a pretty clear
ease of execution.
Renekton and Lee Sin top, these champs drop off, I would say, pretty hard.
Yeah, and you've got to know your matchups a lot more. Like, the trading patterns are probably a little bit more complicated.
They're more unforgiving.
Yeah, more unforgiving. I think that's a great way to frame it. That's right.
You can't make as many mistakes. So, but also as well, in terms of the sample size, you've said a 40% win rate across 30 games. Remember, we take...
Wait, 30 games? That's what he said?
Yeah.
I mean...
We need more sample size,
Don't even use the word win rate
No.
with that amount. Like, you can't actually use win rate until you've got at least 80 games on a champion.
Yeah.
So if you're talking 40% win rate over 85 games, well then yeah, there's a sample size there and something to work with. Just to give a little bit of context, when I learned Kiana, I had a 38% win rate, I believe, over 80-ish, 90 games. And then I only started winning, actually being able to win games, 90 plus games.
Yeah. Once you start developing that champion mastery, then things click. Things can click really quickly with champions.
They can click very quickly.
You just understand your role in the fights in game.
Get into the details. Learn your matchups. Get specific. Watch other high elo players play that champion. Get specific about the trading patterns. How are they managing the waves? When are they placing their ward? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? Have a crack. That's what makes League fun. It's a problem. It's solvable. Just depends how bad you want it.
That's right. So yeah, I think that's a great answer. It depends what he wants through the journey. Those champions are going to be a bit more difficult. And in terms of he says more generally his question is more so about playing what pro players play, and then those champs get nerfed really much.
Well, that is very real. I can't really comment on what those are for top because I think Aatrox has always been pretty good in solo queue no matter what. Even Renekton, those champions are very tried and true. The
top lane pool is so
rock solid.
It's been there for ages.
Think about the champs that have been played in pro play top. You think of Fiora, Camille, Sion, Ornn,
Jax,
Renekton, Jax. All those champions have always been pretty good in solo queue, and
no matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fair to say. I think mid's a little bit different. Maybe even jungle's a little bit different. I know in mid, Azir and Ryze, these in TF, these champions can be very flippy.
Yeah.
So that does exist in mid, but I don't know if it even exists in top.
Yeah. I would say jungle and support, the pro play meta changes so much more for those roles, and then mid maybe third.
Yeah.
And then AD carry and top very stable.
That's right.
All right, so hopefully it gives Mr. Max there some food for thought. That's it for this episode, guys. Let us know in the comments about our conversation, about rank, your thoughts of opinions. Again, I feel so exhausted after this episode.
Oh, this was a tough one.
That was a
mentally
lot
tough
of mental gymnastics I had to do there. And
yeah.
Think about both sides and that sort of stuff. So that was fun.
Hope you guys can see how hard we tried for that one.
Yep. All right, that's it, guys. Keep on improving. Keep 3 block in, process, and we'll see you next time.